Okay, thank you, Tim. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Well, I'd like to first talk about the Power Platform. So what is the Power Platform? It is Microsoft's no-code, low-code tool suite to really help Office users, what we used to call power users. They kind of took that term from us, but people who were comfortable in like Microsoft Access and kind of the people who could implement really detailed programmatic macros and spreadsheets, or even people who started to take a look at tools like Visual Basic that were some that weren't necessarily developers, but were maybe some business analysts or business people who went ahead and moved forward with some technology to create line of business solutions. So as we can see here, we have 4 different products from Microsoft that make up the Power Platform. The first on the left, and this is probably one that's been out the longest and people are most familiar with, and that's Power BI. So that's a data visualization tool to help users create reports and dashboards. Next is Power Apps, which is an application development low-code, no-code solution that's typically used for form capture, data capture in forms, and running some business logic and potentially attaching to back-end services in Azure to do some heavy lifting business logic. And we have Power Automate, which is the process automation. Now this is a tool that is that was probably has been used the most after Power BI because it lets you glue together SharePoint Online with other data stores, and also lets you create like approval workflows and that sort of thing. So that one is probably one of the targets that your end users, your power users, are going to look at. Microsoft also calls these type of users makers or citizen developers, you'll see. The fourth piece is the Power Virtual Agent. So this Microsoft put out the Azure bot framework first, and that allows you to create interactive chatbots. Power Virtual Agents took it a step forward and makes an easier designer experience again to create these chatbots. Now, the big thing that they all use are data connectors, especially the Power Apps and the Power Automate, to get to different components around your organization. Now, these can be external internet-based services like Twitter, Facebook, that sort of thing, or they could be web services that you create in Azure, or even on-prem if you get the Azure plumbing wired up for that. AI Builder helps create some intelligence, like especially with the Power Virtual Agents. It can do natural language query to help take in a question from a user. It will then give a guess, it will be a confidence rating on what, let's say, Q&A articles are most relevant to the question. All right. Also, Power BI has some AI technology available to it, where you can give it queries on your data set, like give me all of the concrete contractors rates from 2017 to 2019 in Cleveland, Ohio, and it would go through the data set and present a display. Now, behind all this is the Common Data Service. This the Power Apps and Power Automate tool set came out of development out of the Dynamics 365 teams. They are the technologies that are really used to expand or extend Dynamics 365 in the cloud, as opposed to other full trust solution type of things that happened, back on premises. This common data service is a model to get to Dynamics 365 content, and it can house content from different Office 365 applications. So the idea is that there are things called entities that are built in this common data service, and you can leverage them in your Power Apps, Power Automate, virtual agents, right? Platform really leverages it, so you're not recreating objects, if you will, that hold data. Okay, so this together is now what we're going to talk about in terms of how to help get in front of this creation. All right, so what's happening and what we're seeing in different organizations is that the makers out in the business units are adopting these applications, and they are the tools enable easy creation. People don't have to log IT requests for a developer to assist, and they're really focused around workflows, especially form capture, and then data mashups with Power BI. So, or mashing up data in the form capture world, or running workflows off of data that has been mashed up. So when I say mash up, I mean taking it from SharePoint list, let's say, plus a Azure data source, SQL table, and maybe a Excel workbook that's housed in OneDrive for Business, or in SharePoint Online, or even in a SharePoint Online site collection that is created as a part of a team. So what's happening is that, and this happened with Microsoft Access also, and even with Excel spreadsheets, is that these solutions are being integrated into the day-to-day workflow of your knowledge workers. Okay, so they're creating these apps themselves, and after time passes and they turn into like linchpin subsystems now that the business is running off of. Okay, so that's great, except when something goes wrong. And what we're seeing is that the IT collaboration teams are getting pinged when there is a problem with some of these Power Platform solutions that people are putting together. So either we're seeing it a lot from the SharePoint team is actually getting questioned, because a lot of people are building these workflows off of SharePoint Online. It's a natural fit, because there's documents there, there's metadata there could be items there in lists, and it's in the modern site, you can see create a flow or create a Power app. The menuing is there, so people are clicking it and using it, and they're getting work done. But something goes wrong. Let's say that the flow was created with an associate who's no longer with the company. All right, so now that identity gets disabled, and now what happens to the flow? We're seeing that, I'm trying to get this data. I know it's on-prem. I know there's all kinds of security around it. Help me get this data. It's in this table. I just need it, to complete this flow that I'm developing to really bring it home. They're getting those type of requests. The SharePoint teams typically can, they're familiar with the SharePoint workflows, and so they have, they've had some of that support, I guess, operational duty, but not at the level that it is starting to bubble up. So the demand is exceeding their capacity at this point in some organizations. Now, the Office 365 teams, let's say that you really don't have a SharePoint team in place, but you have Office 365 teams that are dealing with email and basically everything else, but they're not really SharePointers. This Power Platform is a new thing that they haven't had to deal with before. Okay, as much, in their day-to-day operations. Okay, so typically we see those organizations really didn't necessarily adopt like SharePoint workflows and that sort of thing, or even customizations of SharePoint. So this is a new thing, a new challenge for them. All right, so what Bennett Adelson recommends is to create a Power Platform Center of Excellence. All right. Sometimes we have customers who don't like to use that phrase, so we say, all right, let's go ahead and create Power Platform Enterprise Readiness. All right, let's define the governance model, the adoption strategy, and the support model, at least for the Power Platform. Because it is growing organically, let's go ahead and put some, let's acknowledge that, number one, and then number two, let's figure out what we really are concerned about from a life cycle perspective, okay, and a security perspective. Let's define how we want to deal with that stuff, and let's go and treat this as a solution that we take out to the organization. Now, this Center of Excellence can be applied to any of these IT models operational models that you have out there. Okay, so it could be, all right, some organizations have centralized where everybody is coming to one IT group for all development requests. Decentralized model where departments or agencies are working independently, and they maybe have some support from an IT operations in the back. That would be something like let's see, an entity that would live somewhere in the middle that's not really pictured here. You have kind of a single point that bubbles up in your matrix model, or you are executing in biz DevOps, which is another topic that we have here at Bennett Adelson have been talking about and helping customers with. And that is a model where each one of the teams has integrated set of everybody who needs to help drive a solution to operation, like build and deploy and operate, meaning that you have IT people, dev people, business people in these little groups all working together. So no matter what organizational model you have, we think and recommend that a Power Platform like Center of Excellence that would be beneficial, that you can then broadcast out adoption wise to your organization. Okay, so this is going through some of our method here to how we or what we do when we engage in a Power Platform COE. So on the in the middle here, the governance model is about talking about managing, securing, and monitoring your environment. Okay, so from a management perspective, we want to talk about roles and responsibilities of who does what when, how users are allowed to access this. I mean, in Office 365, everyone can, unless you start throwing switches. You want to talk about security and data loss prevention. You want to get that understood. You want to talk about how or define how application lifecycle management is going to work. Now, once these workflows and forms are essential business needs, and it's not like it's a it's one day someone in the organic method, someone says, oh wow, this is really, we're using this every day, we need this. They don't know who they can report up to and tell that it is a business critical function that is happening. So what we try to do is go ahead and educate these users on how we see the Power Platform, how it fits into the organization, what they need to do to tell this governing body that a mission critical app is now on the system. Okay. And when it does, then they have to follow different procedures for, let's say, ALM. You don't want a power user going and making a change to a flow in the middle of the day in production and publishing it if pieces of your call center need that flow to execute their day-to-day job. You have to planfully schedule that thing to go. These power users are actually, with this platform, they're having to be aware of IT DevOps if their solution is so popular or so necessary. Okay, maybe that when a solution gets large enough or critical enough, it does bubble up to the dev team. That's another kind of checkpoint that could happen in an organization, that you relieve those citizen power users, those makers, of that responsibility because it did reach a critical mass and a critical nature in your organization. So, we have to figure out the process through which that information, like that idea, will be disseminated to the organization, figure out the planning around what happens in those cases, and promote it to the organization, and then execute. Okay. We also need to talk about and define the support and the escalation model. Okay, so what we see in, let me back up here, in let's say a decentralized model, is we want to go ahead and enable or create champions inside each of these divisions. Okay, so we want to see who is naturally doing the most with the platform and help them amplify their efforts by creating communities with in which they can have that visibility in organization that they're in there doing and responding to requests. You'll back them up with, let's say, virtual agents that can handle some Q&A also. You will empower them to keep the Q&A virtual agent list up to date with new questions. They will be your first, line that you communicate with to disseminate the new information on new offerings that the Power Plat COE has, and let's say there is a need where multiple business units here have to access a system that can only be housed on-prem. Okay, how do we connect to that? How do we get that data? Well, that is an offering that the Power Platform COE figures out. They create a reference architecture, and then they tell these champions about it and make it known. Okay. Now, in these models, you want these champions to be your first line of defense for issues, to help other people using the platform, okay, and makers to be their coach. All right, to stop any questions from bubbling up. If they can't handle it, then there is a known process where IT would get involved, or somebody they can contact. If the community can't help, or if a person in the division can't help, then you escalate it with a ticket up to the appropriate group that is supporting the Power Platform. All right, so you need that from a break fix perspective and from an architectural question Q&A perspective. So the Power Platform COE, puts these processes in place, defines these processes, and then it can either be the people who implement the actual some of the day-to-day of those operations, like some of the members of that team, or it can be handed off to IT people that then just kind of feed information into the Power Platform COE. I've seen these COEs have they usually have a person on it who is Office 365 global admin type of person. You have the SharePoint admin type of people. It's like the admin. It's the when I say global admin, I mean they're usually the architects who have this access at that level. Okay, so they are Office 365 architects. They're SharePoint architects. You then could have some developers who are interested in the platform also on this COE. You probably need about, I've seen it with like 3 to 5 different people. You pull in security people as necessary. Okay. So you want to figure out how to establish the environment and the strategy, plan the licenses and the capacity. We'll get to that in a second. Figure out who's the admin, who gets the admin role for Power Platform, what team would get that, maybe. Figure out your data loss prevention policies, potentially set up Azure AD conditional access, and enable cross-tenant isolation. All right, now in monitor and alerting, you want to track the user access, reports on usage. So these are, all things that you get with the Microsoft COE Starter Kit that I'll talk about in a second. Monitor new connectors. So again, those connectors that we talked about earlier, they can be Microsoft provided, free, with your Office 365 subscription. They can be premium connectors, which are which incur an additional cost. One of those, an example of that would be a connector that hits Microsoft Azure, okay, from a flow. You have to, Microsoft changed that licensing policy 6+ months ago at this point, where you have to kind of pay to access Azure services. Okay, to start a runbook in Azure, that has to be a paid connector to do that. And your platform, Power Platform COE, can commission custom connectors that you can actually write to access some of your systems that are on-prem. All right, so you want to know who's using what. Okay, so next up in our method of the Power Plat COE is creating a book of services that you would go out to your customers with, and your customers meaning your organizational departments. Okay, so the first thing is to get a onboarding, orientation, basic training system set up. This is a This is typically a webinar that's recorded that points a user interested in the platform to the resources on like self-learning resources. Microsoft has some great self-learning Power Plat training, by the way. You go ahead and you orient them to your governance model and what they need to be aware of, make checklists on, what they have to do to promote an app to maybe a second level instead of just a published workflow if it is mission critical and they're worried about it and they want some backup more than just a regular hey, this is a approval workflow that's okay. If something goes wrong, I'll fix it or I'll open a ticket. But if it has to really be a mission critical thing that they're it's turned into, or they plan to have mission critical, they need to know what the governance rules is, what the Power Plat COE expects from them from the organization perspective. Okay, their roles and responsibilities basically. Then provide in this book of services a reference applications for different scenarios. So how do I call Azure Web Services? How do I go ahead and hit SAP? How do I use this common data service? How do I get Dynamics data? We recommend having like an approval workflow that has to have all parties approved before it proceeds, or one party can make it go. You want to put together these kind of hello world reference apps for your users to look at, to copy, and use as templates to then go forward and make their change, kind of Lego building blocks, right? Okay, the Power Plat would offer discovery and design sessions for the system developers, meaning, which tool is, is the best fit. This kind of goes with the architecture and development guidance. It would be, okay, I think I want, system developer or maker would say, I think I want to do this. It's a little bit more than I can handle. How should I go about doing it? Now, your champions could help, or the Power Plat could have a COE could have a facility to then, get these system developers up to speed and actually make some architectural calls on, okay, we want to use Flow for this. Power Virtual Agent would be a great fit. I don't know if this, if this is a good, candidate for a Power App. Not sure. They can make those kind of decisions, and you can, potentially think about charging back your separate divisions for these services. Okay. The COE can have an offering for UX and UI design. What is the best way to configure a Power BI report to show this type of information, or draw it up for them to make it most effective visually, or a Power App. They could, the COE could say, we can do custom connectors for you if you have a specific system that doesn't have a connector that's out there that we can access it with, off the shelf or third party. We can create a custom connector for you. Charge the business unit back. They can do custom application development, and then there is some sort of troubleshooting and support mechanism that the COE can provide. Now, if we're thinking about like 100,000 user, sorry, a big one, 100,000 user organization, you put this custom connector work, this custom app dev work, this troubleshooting support, that the COE has to figure out how they can enhance their services with people that can help them. Either they recruit them they're allowed to put like more work on other people's plate somehow, or you bring in consulting services like BA to help out with this. But it goes through this COE to say, okay, yeah, the organization wants to invest in a custom connector because of XYZ. We can reuse it, makes sense, and here are the people who can help us do that. Okay, so next up in our method is to create a development and execution of a training adoption plan. So we leverage Microsoft content. As I said, it's out there. These things can be pointed at to say, look, go through, take this training. Start with PL 900, which is a Microsoft certification to get orientation. If there is a person who is really into the Power Plat. There's others out there that are more in depth for developers, but leverage that stuff that's out there. And there's also help content for making flows and Power Apps and new dashboards. So get those together and publish them out. Now you're going to want to leverage some. Or what we do is leverage corporate communication type of announcements and promotion as if it was like a Teams adoption program or an Office 365 adoption program. So it is to raise awareness, to create excitement, to point users, into next steps. So we help with that. We set up intranet portals for the training and adoption effort. We set up a champion program and a team or Yammer site to start the ball rolling. And the community forum is also a Yammer site. So this is how we do it. We can help you do it. This is how we recommend it to go forward. And this is how you get in front of this organic adoption that's happening. Okay, you use this to help everybody focus on some of your compliance, some of your governance, and your different rules that you're setting up. Okay, so next up, Microsoft makes available this Power Platform COE kit. Okay, so it's a published toolkit. It is a set of adoption tools to help you measure who's using what. All right. So a lot of the feedback we hear is, I know it's being used. I know it's being used because we're getting pinged on support, but we don't have visibility into what is actually being used, what connectors are out there, who is publishing the most flows, what department is, doing it. Okay. This toolkit helps you monitor it. All right. And what we try to do is use it to understand, to help you understand where premium connectors are being used, because those are licensing events that you can talk to Microsoft about in the future if you're using so many of them. It helps you find your champions, and it sees where there is maybe where you the Power Plat CE could say, all right, we need more. We'd like to make sure our organization knows about the power of virtual agents. We think it could help in these areas, but we don't see it being used. Okay, so we know that there's a gap there that we can help. We can see who is creating all these flows. We can go out and proactively ping them to have the discussion about which ones are actually turning into mission critical things. All right. So Microsoft says, all right, define your goals and expected outcomes. That's what we help you with. All right, and we use this toolkit, by the way, we install it and use it as as tools, right? The admin section, and I'll show a little bit of it, helps you understand what's happening in your environment. Some of the governance part can help you set up auditing and compliance. All right, and then the nurture piece is kind of that feedback piece to with champions and seeing where the gaps are. Okay, so this is a picture of the dashboard that is deployed when you deploy your Power Platform COE, and a lot of this this find work is up here in the monitor section. You can see where your custom connectors are. You can see what connections are being made. All right. You can look at how many environments are made. You can see what trial environments people have signed up for. So all of a sudden, if somebody's signed up for a trial environment, you know that they're interested. So you know that you can get them in the program to help ramp them up. You can see what apps and flows have been deployed to your environment. Okay, and you can start quizzing people on them, understand who's doing what and why. All right. Now, you can in this govern piece, you can look at the licenses that are being used, and there is an idea of archiving. So it's kind of interesting that Microsoft put this in their toolkit. The archiving is for you can see that a flow hasn't been activated in 6 months or a year. Why? Well, it could be it was a somebody was doing a POC, or maybe somebody lost interest. You may want to contact them and see if they got stuck. They could be a champion in disguise, right? You can then archive these things and say, all right, we're going to clear them out so they're not consuming custom connector resources, so we don't have to pay for them, right? And archive them. Okay, they'll be there if you want to restore, but you kind of move them out of your environment. Okay, and then in the nurture part, this is where you're finding the makers and who is doing the flows and who is doing the apps and who's doing the shares of the apps. This drills down into a lot of information here to find and kind of capture your champions. Okay, so you can look at the environments. An environment is a runtime container, all right, that is in your Power Platform tenant level, all right. So you can see in Contoso here, there's different environments, which typically maps to different departments, let's say, and then you can see how many apps and flows are active. You can then figure out who the top makers are after you in your organization. So in this case, Megan, Lee, Emily, they would be Deborah. They would be you would want to tap these people as champions. Okay, probably going all the way down this list. I mean, this is your first set of champions. You can see who is where in your global organization it's happening. You can see how many custom connectors are out there, where my cursor is. You can see how many new environments were created. Now, this could be a, if someone is, so the environment management should be a part of the governance planning to say, okay, people, when you need to go ahead and, create an app or to use it in our environment, in our overloading term environment organization, you want to go ahead and create an environment or use one that already exists, whatever your parameters are. But this could say, all right, well, am I getting too many environments created this month? You can see the total number of app makers, number of apps out there, flow makers. So This helps you hunt down your champions, all right, and gives you a good view into what's going on in the environment. I think it's pretty cool myself. Okay, so that's the kind of the end here. I'd like to just kind of review that, encourage you to get ahead of this. Like, now's the time. The Power Platform is being promoted heavily by Microsoft. So if you're not seeing it already as an Office 365 organization, you will be seeing it very soon. It is easy to use. People are going to do it themselves, and we recommend that you get in front of it and deploy some of these things, and we can help you do that and make your plan and execute on adoption, and find your champions. So go ahead and reach out to us. We can help. Tim, over to you.
Jason, thank you. I just would like to add that the basically 4 areas that Jason covered, Bennett Adelson has put together a very nicely packaged and digestible offering around assisting enterprises in developing each of those areas, and it's something that's I think can be very friendly and kind of an easy way to get ahead of the curve, as Jason described, with the Center of Excellence for Power Apps. So if there's any interest in learning more about that, or any interest in learning more about Power Platform, or any other way that we might be able to assist you, please reach out to the contacts here, or to Jason, or anybody else that you might already be interfacing with from Bennett Adelson. We're happy to get you more information. But aside from that, on behalf of our team and Jason, we'd like to thank you for joining us. For your convenience, a replay of this webinar will be available on the Bennett Adelson website by the end of the week, and you'll receive an email with a link to that. If you navigate there directly, you'll be able to just click and link to it. And feel free to contact any of the members of our team. We're happy to provide more information to you. And again, we appreciate your participation and hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks again, folks.